everyone, and welcome back to Martin Luther Moments. Last week we saw Martin caught in a terrible thunderstorm on his way back to law school, and as a result, he vowed to become a monk. It's there that we continue our story today. Just 10 days after his encounter with the frightening thunderstorm, on July 17, 1505, Martin Luther joined the monastery and became part of the Augustinian order. Life for a monk was difficult, consisting of poverty, hard work, and rigorous schedules, including waking up at odd hours of the night for prayer services. But for Martin, it was especially difficult. The emphasis of the monastery was on works righteousness and penance, which is essentially trying to do good things to earn God's favor and punishing yourself to make up for your sin when you don't. Martin struggled with this because he knew he was a sinner, and he tried to confess every sin that he could possibly think of, which led to him even making up a few of his own, confessing things that weren't sins. Martin Luther's confessor eventually got frustrated with him and essentially said something along the lines of, "Stop bugging me and come back when you've actually killed somebody." Now, Luther loved reading the Bible. There's no doubt about that. But with everything that he was struggling with, he couldn't get over this word righteousness. He even said, "I lost touch with Christ the Savior and Comforter, and made of him a jailer and hangman of my poor soul." Martin continued to try to be the best monk that he possibly could, but the people at the monastery tried to keep him busy with different things. Eventually, he was led back to Erfurt, and on April 3rd, 1507, Martin Luther was ordained as a priest. This enabled him to begin studying theology at the University of Erfurt. One benefit of this new field of study was that in order to bring a person to a full understanding, they would have to study the ancient classical writings, and you had to read the actual texts in their original languages. The normal study of method at the time was to read summaries and commentaries of the Bible that had been translated. Luther's love of reading the Bible now led him to study Greek and Hebrew, rather than just the Latin translation supported by the Church. In 1508, Luther's superior at the monastery, Johann von Staupitz, became the dean of the newly formed University of Wittenberg. After becoming dean, he sent Luther to teach at Wittenberg. As he was teaching, Luther continued his studies, and on October 19, 1512, Luther was given a Doctor of Theology degree. 2 days later, he was received into the Senate of the Theological Faculty, where he succeeded his superior as the chair of theology. In fact, Luther would be so prominent at the University of Wittenberg that he drew many people to come to the university, and he held that position for the remainder of his life. Luther remained a monk in the Augustinian order, although he still continued to struggle with his own sin and fear of God's judgment. But in 1511, Martin Luther and another monk were sent to Rome to represent the Augustinian order. This deeply troubling trip would spark something in Martin Luther, something that would eventually fuel the fire for revival that was the Protestant Reformation. Well, that's all we have for today, but please check in again next week to see what happens. In the meantime, remember your baptism and go in peace.